Hello, I'm John Laspina, carnivore teacher, and I have another great interview for you here. This is PapaCarnivore, Peter. He lives in my city, but a little further east from me. He's in East Boca Raton. I'm in West, and he's going to share his carnivore journey with you, and it is an eye-opener. It's amazing. So welcome, and let's get started. Can you introduce yourself and share a little bit about your life before starting the carnivore diet?
Well, thanks for having me, John. I really appreciate it. I love what you do. I'm a big fan. And my hope is that, we'll get more people to come to your channel because I think it's one of the best channels, carnivore channels on the internet. I really do.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Also, both of us are from the Philadelphia area, right?
That's true. We are. We have a lot in common, actually.
Yeah. So, and we both now live in Florida in the same town in Boca Raton. It's amazing that we met each other.
And we met each other in person without planning it in the same Japanese buffet restaurant on a table apart. I mean, it was meant to be.
One table apart. Like
we were meant to meet each other. That was
in fact, John was the first carnivore I ever met. And it was literally a year and a half of doing carnivore, the first carnivore I ever met.
All right.
Yeah. So, yeah. My story, well, I'm going to go back to the very beginning as a kid. Let me start there. So I was a pretty thin kid. I was a skinny kid. And back in, I'm going to be 63 in June. And I'm a child of the 60s and 70s. So, late 60s, basically through to the mid 70s, I was a kid. And back then, John, there were no fat kids, really. There might have been a couple, right, in the class that were chubby, but nothing compared to the severely obese kids you see today. None of them look like a bloated balloon like that. They might have been overweight a little bit in today's standards, slightly what you call chubby or overweight, but literally 95% of the kids were skinny. They were normal size. And I was one of those kids. And growing up, I remember having dinner at the dinner table. That's one thing. My family was very traditional. We had dinner every night together. And I remember loving meat. I loved meat. Any kind of meat. I loved cheese. Also for breakfast, I loved eggs. I loved bacon, sausage, ham, whatever kind of meat. I loved butter. In fact, back then they started having margarine, and my mom had margarine and butter. She always had butter in the fridge. I would not eat that margarine. I thought it tasted like poison. I didn't understand why anyone would want that. When I tasted a piece of butter, I would want the butter. It tasted so good. So I would cook my eggs in butter, and I called myself the egg man because I love making eggs. I make scrambled eggs. I make easy over, sunny side, poached eggs, soft boiled eggs. I love eggs, hard boiled eggs, you name it. But for dinner, my mom and I, we would have this thing where all my older brother and younger sister and my dad would be gone from the table. And I would be the last one there. And it would be like a hostage negotiation, about the vegetables that I wouldn't eat. And she'd be like, "You're not leaving until you finish, eat those And I'd be, "No, I don't want them. I don't like them. I wouldn't eat them." So she would say, "Okay, look, eat 10 more peas." And I'd say, "I'll eat one." It was like a sales negotiation. I always knew I'd be in sales. I was in sales the rest of my life. And then she'd say, "Okay, eat 8." And I said, "I'll eat 2." And in the end, she'd turn her back and I would take the peas, and there was a potted plant behind me, and I would put them in there and cover them with the dirt. And then the other thing I would do is if there was mashed potatoes, which she didn't care if I ate the mashed potatoes, which I really didn't like the potatoes either, I would put them underneath, hide the peas under there. And I'd be, "Okay, I ate them." She would go, "Okay." Of course, when she emptied out my plate, she would see the peas underneath there, So that didn't work as well as the potted plants. She never figured that one out ever. So I never ate the vegetables. So I think I always knew from a little kid that I was meant to be a carnivore in a way. And Rick Charger Mopar, 41-year carnivore, and he's been carnivore almost his whole life. Well, I would almost say I was a carnivore longer than Rick, because from a little kid, had I kept with that and I was allowed to only eat that way, I would have. If no one said it was bad, that's what I would have eaten the same things, John, that I eat today. I really would have. There would have been no difference, you know? The only thing is, what my kryptonite has always been, okay, it wasn't the fruits or vegetables so much, although I do always like fruit, was sweets. And in particular, chocolate and cookies and cakes and muffins and pies and Pop-Tarts and bread. Oh, John, right? You're Italian, right? Bread, right? Italian bread, whatever kind of bread. I'm Jewish, so we had challah, and boy, I would put butter, lots of butter, and I would have the bread and the butter, and you just keep going. With bread, there's almost no stopping. And so, if you eat a lot of bread, you're going to get fat over, it's going to turn into sugar. You're going to get fat. And I could not moderate any type of sweets. And so for me, the big kryptonite has always been sweets for me. And I include bread in there, okay? Pasta, bread, but sweets and breads and pastas, okay, that kind of stuff. And so, but what happened was, through my teen years and early 20s, I was thin. I never was fat. And I guess I got married when I was 29, and I started to gain maybe a little weight. But I think when I got married, now I'm 6'3", okay? And when I got married, well, let's back up. When I was in high school, I was about 185 to 200 pounds, somewhere right around there. I was a size 34 pants, okay? And by the time I got married, I was probably 225, 230 on my wedding day. This is 1991, okay? And I was 29 years old. So and maybe I was a size 38 pants by then, 36, let's say 36. So it slowly got a little bigger. And, when I got into my 30s, maybe I was a 38, John, and 235, 240. And then, when I was in my 40s, I was probably 240 to 250. And, I got into the 50s, and I probably always carried around between 245 and 255, and a size 40 was basically for a long time, what size pants I wore. But I ended up getting divorced in 2012. I was married 21 years. I have two kids. My son Michael just turned 30, and Katie's just turned 27. Two wonderful kids. Michael's in San Antonio, Texas, and Katie's in Austin, Texas. Great kids. My son's married. He's going to have a granddaughter in March. So that's very exciting. But when I got divorced, by that, I guess I had gotten up to, I'd say 260 to 270 maybe, John. I started ballooning up, and a lot of it just was, I was very sad, very depressed. I went into a very deep depression. I also had gotten laid off. I was a senior vice president of Wachovia and Wells Fargo Bank for 26 years. And I lost my job when Wachovia was bought by Wells Fargo. And I was in the home mortgage department, and they closed Wachovia Mortgage because they had Wells Fargo Mortgage. So all the senior executives, basically the whole department went kaboom. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Up in the Air with George Clooney, where he had to fire all these people. He was a professional corporate firing guy.
Yeah, I've seen that several times. It's a good movie.
Well, so that was me. I had like 6, 7 different states.
That's how
went around.
You laid people off the way he did, or you got laid off that way?
Knowing that I was but I had to go and lay off all my friends. These were all my friends.
Wow, that's hard.
So I'd go, imagine, you go there, you stay in a hotel, you're by yourself. And this is for several months of doing that, flying around the country, flying to all different cities. I had Florida, I had Texas, I had just a whole bunch of the Southeast, basically, the whole Southeast. So that was just, took a real toll on me. Now, that was in 2008, okay? So this was 4 years before I got divorced. But, what ended up happening is when the money ran dry and my severance was all used up, almost to the day that the severance money went to zero, I was served with divorce papers. Because when, no money, but there goes the love, right? And anyway, tragic story, but it led to a lot of depression and weight gain. And fast forward, that's 2012, I got divorced. Then I moved to Florida because my dad was very, very sick and he had cancer, prostate cancer. This was in 2015. I moved, so what's that, 10 years ago. And to help my mom, because, my dad was almost 90, and he ended up passing away, but I ended up coming to help my mom with my dad, because he was just very weak, got very weak. And we tried everything, but just he couldn't make it. So there is a history of prostate cancer, which I'm going to come back to in a minute, because there's a reason why I went there. So any case, I ended up, John, suffering I always had some depression and anxiety, and I suffered with ADHD, undiagnosed for a long, long time. But maybe in about 2008 or 2009, my brother, who's a psychiatrist, he kept wanting me to go on ADHD medicines for a long time. I finally went on those. Maybe it helped a little bit. The depression, anxiety, I was on a lot of different things for that as well, medicines. And it might have helped a little bit, but I just felt numb. I had felt like zero emotion. I couldn't smile, John, for years. I would even say for 10 years or more. I can't remember smiling unless it was a fake smile, or I was faking it, for a picture, but not a real happiness. And to live like that, and John, I think you had some of that too, right? And super high worry and anxiety with lots of worry and dread, and the slightest thing, I would immediately push the red button, panic button, and I would go to the worst extreme nightmare scenario when someone told me something that was not good, So that's anxiety, So so fast forward to 2 years ago, or a little more than 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. It was this August of 2022. Okay. I was at my doctor's office and I had a routine blood draw, right, for what I thought was, my thyroid. I'm hypothyroid, very slight. I've been since my 20s. I've taken the levothyroxine, Synthroid, whatever. No big deal. Not very high dosage, but so they every 90 days you go in for a blood draw. They adjust your medicine. And, they gave me medicine and said, well, you know what, your level is fine. You don't have to change your medicine. They gave me a new prescription. Then really didn't talk to me about anything. So now we go from August of 22 to about 7 months later. It's now the end of January 23. I go in for my annual exam, And I'm sitting there with the nurse, in the beginning before the doctor comes in and she's taking my blood pressure and all these different things. My blood pressure by that time, John, I was on 3 blood pressure medicines. I was 300 pounds. I was BMI of 40 or close to it, maybe 39 or 40. I was morbidly obese. I had been diagnosed as pre-diabetic, but up until that point, I was not full-blown diabetes, so I wasn't on any medicine for that. But I had acid reflux, omeprazole for years. Terrible acid reflux, terrible arthritis in my knees, so bad I could barely walk, felt like bone on bone, like I needed 2 knee replacements. I had pain in my lower back, my ankles. I had terrible indigestion and IBS and bowel problems for years, whether it was just bloating, gut pain when I would eat food, alternating constipation, diarrhea. Just terrible. And I've suffered with that for decades. But any case, the nurse says to me, she's asking me different questions. Are you still taking this medicine for your depression, anxiety, this, and you're still taking your thyroid medicine? And she goes, and what are you taking for your diabetes? I said, "What? I don't have diabetes. What are you talking about?" She said, no, you're diabetic. I said, what are you talking about? What, since when? She goes, oh, last August, your A1C came in and it was I don't know, 8 point something. I don't even remember what she said. I just remember the 8 because and then I went into a brain fog, panic mode, right? And I'm like, well, was anybody going to tell me this? 7 months, I'm shoving sugar in my face, not knowing that I'm a full-blown diabetic. Well, I mean, they should have told you. I don't know. I mean, so anyway, doctor comes in, he confirms, yes. And I said, well, how come nobody said anything to you? Oh, we told you. I said, no, you didn't. Oh, yes, we did. You just weren't listening. Whatever, one of those. Anyway, I said, look, he wanted to start me on metformin, John, or medicine. And I said, well, before we do that, I'm going to try and fix this with diet and exercise. Whatever, I'm going to figure something out first. Now that I know, you give me like 6 months to figure this out. I need time. So he's like, okay, whatever you want to do. But, and he scheduled me for a 6-month visit or something, to come back. So I went home now let me start here. My ex-father-in-law, he passed away. He was a lovely man. His name was Dick Dick Dalsimer. Loved this little guy, little Jewish guy, my wife's dad. He passed away at 75 from complications from terrible, terrible, terrible type 2 diabetes. Double amputee, didn't take it seriously, would just keep shooting more insulin and eating, think it was a joke, keep eating the sweets, sneaking the pies and the cake, and you know what I mean, just keep drinking the soda, and just didn't take it seriously until first they took a toe, then they took half his foot, then they took a foot, then they took a leg. By the time he was done, this guy was in a wheelchair with no legs, 5 fingers amputated out of 10, doubled over in 24/7 pain, and 7 years of dialysis until finally his kidneys all his organs shut down, and went partially blind. This is a terrible disease. Diabetes is no joke. Okay, anybody who's listening to this, if you are diabetic, okay, or somebody who is diabetic or even pre-diabetic, you got to take what I'm going to say here like as serious as a heart attack. I'm not joking around, because I watched somebody that I loved and my ex-wife loved very dearly, and my kids, right, their grandfather just die slowly over 7-8 years, and it would just go down. You just hope to hold at a level, and you just keep going down, and they keep chopping off more body parts, and it gets worse. So it's a terrible, awful disease. So that was what was running through my mind, John, as when they said I'm diabetic, A1C over 8, and I looked that up. I didn't even know what that meant, so I started looking that up. Well, I went home and I went to YouTube University. I don't know. I just went on YouTube and I said I typed in 2 words: reverse diabetes, because I figured there's got to be something out there where I can reverse diabetes, right? And who popped up? Dr. Berry. And his video called Reverse Diabetes was the first thing that pulled up. Now that video has got to be viewed, I don't know how many tens of millions of times, but some insane amount of times. So that was interesting, just seeing how many views and everything else. So I watched it, and I'm, listening to the guy. He's like a real hick, a real Southern, he's got the accent and everything. And I'm like, who is this guy? I don't know, is he for real? Yeah, he says he's a doctor, but he sounds like kind of a quack. This is my first time listening to this guy, but he was making a lot of sense. He was very common sense, and everything he was saying was making sense. And he was basically talking about keto and the proper human diet, but he was talking about keto for the most part. He mentioned carnivore, I believe, the spectrum, that there's keto, ketovore, and then carnivore and low carb. And I was like, okay, and lion diet, I think he mentioned, but I was like, okay. So I still wasn't 100% convinced, but I was like, wow, maybe there's something to this. So I started reading the comments, and I went down the rabbit hole, and there were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of comments, and people were saying, I've reversed my diabetes. I got off my insulin. I no longer have depression and anxiety. I'm off all those meds. I'm like, that's me. I've got that. My high blood pressure went away. I'm on 3 blood pressure meds. It went on. My arthritis is gone. My eczema is gone. Skin tags. I had skin tags. I had all the above. My IBS and my stomach problems, my constipation, diarrhea, and my bowels are normal. I don't even use toilet paper anymore. Everything's perfect. I'm like, wow, what? Now so I don't know. I just decided that day I'm going to start keto, and I started like a dirty keto. What I didn't realize until I started watching Ken Berry a little more about, stay away from the keto cookies, cakes, and pies and all the treats. And I did incorporate, but I did do pretty clean. I took out the seed oils, the vegetables, most of the fruits except for berries. But I still was having nuts. I was still having some cheese. I was still having, some of the keto things, avocados. I was pretty clean though. And I started eating meat, a lot more meat. I don't think I was eating enough fat at the time, but I started eating meat. I didn't realize how important fat was. But within about a couple of weeks, 2 weeks, I started feeling a lot better on the keto, and I started tightening it down a little further as I started watching more and more Dr. Berry videos and some other influencers that, I found Dr. Chafee and all Steak and Bella, Bella Steak and Butter Girl and a whole bunch of different people. And I started tightening it down. Within 2 weeks, I was basically carnivore in 2 weeks. Very, very, you could say ketovore, but it was almost carnivore. So after 3 weeks, by this time I'm carnivore. I'm pretty much 95%. John, my arthritis in my knees was gone. No pain, not a little pain, nothing. I was literally taking like ibuprofen, 3 of them every 4 hours. There's this Voltaren cream. It used to be a prescription cream for pain in your joints. I was going through cases of that stuff 4 times a day, rubbing that on my knees. And none of that would do maybe 10%, 5% better than, nothing, without. But this was like 100% cure, gone, nothing, boom. Like I'm 20 years old. The clicking in my joints, you get clicking, you walk, you hear clicking in your knees and stuff, and your ankles. It was gone. I don't know if you ever saw Wizard of Oz, the Tin Man, and they gave him a little squirt of the oil, and he started moving. He was all locked up. Well, that's kind of how it felt, where all of a sudden I've got all of my mobility back. Also, that brain fog lifted. Within 3 weeks, my brain fog lifted. I didn't even really know I was in the fog until the fog lifted. And my happiness, John, started coming back. All of a sudden, I'm like, and I'm sleeping better, and I'm waking up earlier in the morning and going to bed much earlier in the evening, just passing out. I would have a lot of trouble, especially when you have depression, anxiety. A lot of times you can't even sleep. Like it's very difficult to sleep at all.
Did you have sleep apnea?
I had sleep apnea too, yeah. I wasn't on a CPAP machine, but I probably should have been on one. My brother is on a CPAP machine. I just never went in and did that, but I snored like a truck. And yeah, I had a lot of issues with that. So, but within 3 weeks, seriously, and my gut started feeling better. It all started changing right around that 3 week mark. I would say 3-4 weeks. And I kept, tightening down the carnivore a little more till, I'm like really tight on it. And I started eating more fat. By eating more fat, John, I would add more butter. I would add a lot of butter to my meat and to my eggs. Now I still drink coffee, 1 cup, and I do add some heavy cream and just 2 tablespoons, not a lot, of heavy cream, and at least 2-3 tablespoons of grass-fed butter. And I kind of whip it up. So that's, to me, is almost, I call it my brain medicine because it starts my day off. And I even sometimes will put in a tablespoon of MCT oil, coconut oil. When that's done, I'm probably going to get rid of that, but I've got a big bottle left. When that's done, I'm going to take that out because I think the fat is enough from the butter and the cream. And it's a plant, so I'm going to take that out, essentially. But that's like so much fat. So I called that my brain medicine, because I found Dr. Georgia Ede, Change Your Diet, Change Your Mind book, and Dr. Chris Palmer, Brain Energy. And so all this stuff that's talking about how depression, anxiety, and all these mental disorders, ADHD, schizophrenia, and I was bipolar depressed. I had bipolar depression, not just regular. I had bipolar depression, type 2. I was on some pretty serious meds for that. I was on an antipsychotic for the bipolar. I was on depression medicine. I was on an anti-anxiety medicine and ADHD medicine for that. Well, anyway, I started reading about that, and they were talking about really upping the fat. So I did. And it just got better and better and better and better. And I worked with my psychiatrist, who I've been seeing for, well over a decade more. And he didn't want me to, he was fighting it the whole way. But I said, look, I'm not asking you for your permission. I tried to talk to him about it, and he saw the weight loss, how much weight I was losing. This is over a period of time. But eventually he weaned me off of like the ADHD medicine, completely gone. The depression medicine, I finally weaned off of that. But the one that he would not let me stop was the antipsychotic for the bipolar, because he thought if I go off that, I'm going off the reservation. Like you can't, that's a lifelong condition. You cannot go off of that. Well, meanwhile, by the time we got to that point, I didn't tell him, but I had been off of that for 3 months. I secretly just weaned off very slowly, just little bit down. And so I had an appointment. I had an appointment to see him, and I ended up canceling it. I haven't seen him since. I'm literally haven't seen my psychiatrist. And he never even called to say, like, oh my God, you're off your, you haven't, like you would think if he thought I was really this bad, John, wouldn't you call me personally or email me or something and say, why aren't you coming in? There's no way you have any medicine left, because I'm the only guy that can prescribe it. Nothing.
It's almost like he
And I
doesn't
think it's
care,
'cause
and
he was mad at
you're
me,
just
he's mad at me,
a number
John.
to him, right?
He was mad at me. Like he was like, you know what? I'm going to let you do whatever you want, because you know what? In the end, you're going to come back and you're going to be off the, you're going to be off the reservation.
Wow.
And then you're going to have to come, you're going to, because I'm sure there's a lot of people who went off their medicines, eating the standard American diet, and they thought they could get off the medicine. They go off the reservation and they end up in a psych ward or something with bipolar. Right. And then, okay, he's got his patient back, right? At that point, they got to come back to him. Mm-hmm. Well, I got news for you folks. I've been off all my psych meds now. I want to say it's at least 4, maybe 6 months. And I feel absolutely perfect. I'm happy. I don't have any signs of ADHD at all. I mean, I can concentrate. You see me, do I seem like I listen pretty well? When we're in conversations, like,
absolutely. I would not, remember I was a teacher for 34 years. I know what ADHD is.
But I don't seem like that.
I don't see that. I don't see the distraction or the hyperactivity from you. No.
Yeah. And I used to have I was a terrible listener. And that part of being a terrible listener is the ADHD. You would, like someone would say something to me, John, and I'm immediately going in a million different directions. Right. Yeah. And so I'm not listening. You can keep talking. I'm not hearing a word you said after you said one thing. Right. And and then I would talk over the person too. Like I had this terrible habit of not letting somebody finish their sentences, and just because I was wanting to say what was in my mind. Right. That's that impulsivity of an ADHD person. I know this very well. I couldn't control it. I think this carnivore calm, I guess I'm going to call it, this carnivore zen. I hate to say that word, but it's true. Carnivore calm. I call it peace. Carnivore peace. My mind, my emotions, everything's calm and peaceful. And slow down, and my mind is slow, and clear for the first time since, maybe I was in my teens, that I could, I didn't have all this white noise and all this stuff going on, and I can actually listen to what someone says like a normal person and go, and keep listening. I'm still listening to everything you're saying. Then I go, and then I respond. Well, that's like what a normal person does. I never could do that. So that was, a big thing for me. So I'm off all my medicines for 3 high blood pressure. My blood pressure now, it was pretty resistant. The high blood pressure, I did have resistant high blood pressure. It took the better part of a year, John, to slowly go back down. But as I finally lost the weight, you know what I mean? And it just eventually, now, I eventually weaned off slowly the 3 to 2 to 1 blood pressure medicine to none. And, I monitored it really closely and stuff. And then now it's about 115 over 75, 80 with no medicine. Now I started at 300 pounds. I'm now, my low was 199. I hadn't been under 200 pounds since I was 19 years old. Now I'm about 205. I've maybe popped up a little, but I hit this stage. I think I talked to you about this, John, where I was, we'll talk about how I eat, but I'm pretty much a 2 MAD guy, 2 meals a day. But lately, once I hit my goal weight, I got ravenously hungry for some reason, and I started going 3 meals a day. I just was hungry, and so I ate more. I ramped up. I was still pretty strict, but I just felt hungry. Like my body, if my body says you need more, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do that. I know how to lose the weight, so I'm not going to worry. I'm not worried because I'm not eating the carbs. I'm not eating cookies, and so I'm okay here at 205. I mean, I haven't weighed 205 since I was like 21. I was like college. I was a size 44 pants, almost 46. I was like right up there. And I'm now at a 34, which remember I told you when I was 19, I was a 34. I'm a 34, and they're a little loose depending on which pair of pants.
So you're a 33 sometimes.
Yeah, somewhere between.
That's what
If
I
I
am.
wear
That's
like
what
my
I am.
jeans, I have these jeans my girlfriend bought me that I call my skinny jeans. They're like skinny legs on them. They're not, like real skinny jeans where they hug your leg, but they're thin. Like the leg part is thin. But the waist on that, they're pretty loose. I could probably do like a 33, on those. So I have to cinch my belt up so they don't fall off. I mean, it's crazy, right? So, and then we were talking right before we went on the air about, I used to be really hot all the time. I was so fat, and I had all this fat on me. I would sweat and sweat and sweat, always be sweating. And I would carry like a paper towels or something with me. And I'd constantly be wiping, my face and my mustache here, my nose and up in my forehead and sweat. And even the back of my neck, I would just be sweating. I was a fat guy. I had turned into a 300-pound obese fat guy who could barely walk. And like I said, with the arthritis, I could barely walk around. I sell furniture, in a retail setting. And I'd get home and I could just get into bed. I couldn't move. Now I do 5-mile walks every morning along the Intercoastal Canal here, a waterway. I take my dog for a whole lap. She goes up and down once, and then she poops out. She's 14. So I put her up, and then I just keep going, and I do 5, sometimes 6 laps, whatever I have time for. I'm usually just limited because I have to go to work, and I have to stop. I would keep going. And on a day like today, I'll go out for a second walk later today because, I just have all this energy, and there's no pain at all. When I'm done, John, nothing. Zero. There's just like I took a walk, no different than if I walked to the refrigerator and back to my bedroom, that there's zero pain after all that walking. I can't even tell you the difference in my life,
That's wonderful. Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
I wrote down a list of all the things that you had wrong.
And
that
John, I've got so many.
now.
I could sit here for so long.
Oh, I know. And you talked about the bucket of medicine bottles that you have, but I wanted to ask you this question first.
Yeah.
What unexpected benefits have you noticed? Like some people, you talked about not being hot and sweaty all the time. What else?
Well, I'm going to give you another
expect happen. Like a lot of people talk about not getting sunburn, things like that.
Well, yeah, so in the summertime here in Florida, you know how hot and humid it is here, John. It's the sun. I'm a very light-skinned person. My dad was a redhead. He was Jewish, but he might as well look like Jack O'Callahan. He is freckled, blue eyes, light-skinned, red hair.
Yeah.
In fact, when he was in the U.S. Army in World War II, they called him Reds, because he was red hair. And he was very fair-skinned, and he would burn immediately. Well, I would burn. If I went out for 15 minutes in that Florida sun in the summer, I would be bright red, burn. So I'm noticing I'm taking these walks, and I didn't put any suntan lotion on it. I don't know why. I just never really do, And I'm taking like a 2-3 hour walk in the sun, and maybe it gets a little red, like a ruddy color a little bit, but no pain, no sunburn. And the next day, it kind of turns brown a little bit. It's like, so there's no sunburn. It's complete change. The other thing too is when I used to brush my teeth, I would get bleeding, you'd spit out and it would be blood, from the blood brushing. That's gone. My teeth are perfect. The gums are now perfect. My teeth are stronger. They were kind of, I wouldn't say loose, but they weren't stable like they are now. Now I could, bite into a lobster claw probably and crack it and not worry about my teeth. You know, I mean, they're so strong. My hair got darker. If you had seen me 2 years ago, John, I had a lot more gray in my hair. And you can see now, look, it almost, there's a little bit of gray wisps in there. And I'm almost 63. And so the gray kind of, and I also had like a little bit of a balding spot that filled in and up here, that filled in, I don't know. And then there was also like a white patch, almost like a skunk patch of white in one area that just went away. It just got dark again. My skin is soft. My fingernails are strong, and they used to have little like ridges on there, and they would chip and break, and the cuticles would bleed. It's all gone. I mean, it's hair, skin, nails, body odor. I have no body odor.
Oh.
I don't use any. I don't use shampoo. I use just some soap. It's called Hogwash. It's made by JKLM Farms in Vermont. I get it on the internet. It's lard. It's made purely from lard. I don't know if they add anything, but it's lard soap. And it's like tallow soap essentially, right? But it's lard. And I just put that on my skin. I put a little in my hair, you know, and soap it a little bit. And I use no deodorant anymore. Just not needed. I don't smell. I mean, even my girlfriend, says no, zero, nothing. I could literally go 2, 3, 4 days, John, without a shower, and I don't smell. I almost feel like I don't need to, but I still do, you know, every day or every other day sometimes. It's okay. But I could never do that. You know, I was sweating. I was a fat guy. I mean, if I didn't shower once or twice a day, not a good thing. You know what I mean? So those are some of the unexpected. Oh, one other unexpected benefit. My eyesight got a lot better. So I'm nearsighted and I have astigmatism, and I wear glasses mainly for far away, but I also need reading glasses. You know, I'm at that age. So I do have a pair of reading glasses separate. I don't have progressives where, they make me dizzy. I don't know. That's weird with the 2 levels. But I'm starting to see better, like far away. Like I used to not be able to see the individual leaves or palm fronds in the tree from far away. And I'm going, like I'm looking right now at some palm trees. I'm on my patio, okay? And I can see every individual palm frond. Like, that's crazy. You know, and so I'm thinking to myself, and when I'm driving, particularly at night, that's when I really needed the glasses. I'm driving home from work at night, and I'm like, I'm okay. I can see the street signs pretty well. Not perfect, but pretty good. And I'm like, something's weird. I'm going to go in for an eye exam. I hadn't been in for an eye exam. So this is about 3 months ago, John. I went in for an eye exam. Well, my eyesight improved 2 full diopters in each eye. I went from like a -1.25 to 0.75 in each eye. And I asked the doctor, she's an older lady, my eye doctor. I said, have you ever seen that in somebody almost 63 years old, that their vision improves like that? She said, I've been doing this for 27 years. I've never seen that in my life. She goes, what are you doing? And I started telling her that my diet, I changed my diet, and I've lost 100 pounds, and I went through it. And, she didn't, it's not like a regular doctor. They're not completely anti all this stuff. She just thought it was very interesting. And I said, yeah, that's all I did. I eat a very healthy, I got rid of processed foods, and I pretty much eat mostly meat, but I have a little bit of other stuff, but mostly whole foods. I made it very generic, whole foods, meat-based diet, but no processed food, no sugar, whatever. And so she said, yeah, normally what you see is the vision stays the same or gets worse, but never gets better, and certainly not this much in both eyes. So she gave me new lenses for my glasses. I like, and they put in new lenses. John, I haven't worn my glasses in over a year. Even since I got the prescription 3 months ago, it's sitting in the glove box in my car, but I don't need them. I mean, and that was unheard of. That was unheard of before. I had to wear my glasses for driving at night. I had to, or I couldn't really drive. Right. I just don't even need them. So that's kind of weird. And I've heard of this from other people too. It's not just me.
Well, my vision has improved as well as a lot of my other senses. Tell me your go-to meals What are your favorite? Because we talked about this and we talked about the solid butter, adding a little bit of it.
Yeah,
And I
so
started doing that.
so I'll tell everybody else, you know this very
All right.
well. We've
Yeah.
talked about this, but so my typical day, either I start out with like what I told you, 1 cup of coffee with grass-fed butter and a little bit of cream. And maybe right now 1 tablespoon of the MCT refined coconut oil, but I'm going to take that out. I don't really need that. So I have that, and that pretty much holds me until my first meal, which is normally about, I'd say 1 to 2 o'clock-ish. Okay, if I'm at work, I'll bring some meat with me, some, whatever, meat from the previous day, some hard-boiled eggs. I always bring hard-boiled eggs. I have sardines, okay, so in a pinch, sometimes I'll have sardines but it's always some meat and my hard-boiled eggs, okay? Sometimes some chopped liver from the deli, Jewish type, or some Braunschweiger or liverwurst, because just to get in some liver, I usually do that like once a week. But that's my first meal normally. Now, if I'm on my day off, which is 2 days a week, I have bacon and eggs. I'll have 5 eggs, and I'll have 5 strips of the thick sliced, almost like that Wright's bacon, but I get it at Aldi, but it's the same thing. And what I'll do is I'll cook the bacon I have a ceramic Mueller pan, really nice pan. And then what I'll do is I have a bacon grease pot collector, and I'll pour the bacon, because I saved the bacon grease, John, because I use that for frying, and it's free grease. I mean, it's free. But I'll keep some of the bacon grease in the pan and cook my eggs in the bacon grease. Oh man, I don't know if you've ever tried how delicious that is, but really delicious. So I'll have that as a breakfast. Well, that's when I'm on my day off. Or there's some mornings I wake up and I'm just hungry before I go to work, John, and I'll have the bacon and eggs. But if I'm feeling okay, my normal, I would say 5 days a week, I don't eat till 1 or 2 o'clock. Okay. My second meal, so I do intermittent fasting normally, like 18-6. Okay. My second meal of the day will typically be between, I'd say 6 and, if I'm late shift, a couple days a week later, like 8 o'clock. But if I'm on my normal day, 6 o'clock, I'll have dinner. Dinner is, as you know, I'm a T-bone guy and I'm a New York strip guy. I'm not a ribeye guy, but I do like ribeye. It's not that I'm against it, but if I'm ranking steaks, it's not ribeyes 3, T-bone's 1, New York strip 2, ribeye 3. But that'll typically be, now what I do is I cook it in a cast iron. I have a very vintage Griswold number 8 vintage cast iron pan, real heavy one, incredible. And I cook it in beef tallow, the Wagyu beef tallow. I get it on Amazon. It's in a black, big coffee can looking thing. Great stuff. And I cook that there, and then I sear it both sides, and then I'll put it on, I have like a wooden cutting board kind of plate. It's like a wooden cutting board. I'll put that on there, and I melt a little bit of butter on top just to give it a little melt on the top, and then I sprinkle Malden smoked sea salt flakes on the steak. Okay. Now for eggs, I use the Redmonds because it's more of a granulated. In my eggs, I use the Redmonds, real salt. But for steaks, I like the Maldens because it's a different consistency. They're like flakes. And then I take like some slices of butter on the side of my steak, cold. And with every bite, I cut off a little piece of that butter with every bite. And that butter, cold butter, melts in your mouth. John, have you tried it?
I have. I started doing this.
Oh my God, John, isn't it unbelievable?
It's amazing.
It's unbelievable.
And what I've been doing for leftovers too is I'm not heating the steak up the next day.
No.
If I have a leftover steak, I actually like it cold or room temperature, and then the room temperature butter. And I'm like, it's like eating lunch meat. It's like, this is just as good or better.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah,
so if I have steak left over, like I said, I'll bring that into lunch and I'll bring some butter. Good. And I bring my butter and I eat it with, that's my lunch with hard-boiled eggs or some sardines.
Yeah.
So it's a very easy, it's a 2 meal a day concept. Now there are days where I just don't even eat till dinner. I bring the lunch into work, let's say, but I just don't eat it. I get busy at work, whatever. I don't feel hungry. There's a lot of days, John, where I just eat 1 meal a day. But if I feel that, and like I said, there's some meals, well, I'll eat my eggs and bacon in the morning because I'm hungry, and I'll still eat my lunch, and then I'll eat my dinner. So it's just whatever. I'm somewhere, normally a 2 meal guy. And then I would say right now I'm hedging more towards 3 just because I've hit my goal weight and I'm a little hungrier. I think my body is wanting a little bit
You're
more.
listening to your body, which is good. That's what you should
Yeah.
do. How
But
did
if I
your
don't, if I'm not hungry or I get busy at work, I don't, I can go. I mean, I just don't get hungry a lot of times. I'm just not hungry.
if you're not hungry, don't eat. If you are, eat more. Just you and I, we're learning now as the years go
Yeah.
on to listen to our body signals that we're fogged up. They were fogged
Yeah.
up before with all the sugar. And now we know what real hunger is and not cravings.
Well, and I'll tell you about the two. I mean, look, I'm not perfect, and I've talked to you about what I call my infamous chocolate bar
Oh
incident.
yeah.
So I went to my mom's and had she said, oh, after dinner, why don't you have some of this chocolate bar, right? I got this dark chocolate with almonds, which is like my kryptonite, like it's like my gold medal, chocolate bar. And I said, I can't, no, but she used the Jewish grandmother guilt, mother guilt. And after the third time, I was like, okay, I'll just have a bite. I'll just have a couple squares, right? Well, I eat that, and then it kept calling to me, over there in the pantry. And so I went back and had a couple more squares, John. I'll just have 2 more squares, no big deal. By the time I left, not only was the chocolate bar gone, but I was looking in the pantry for more chocolate bars. If she had 3 chocolate bars, I probably would have eaten all 3.
Yep.
I mean, it's sad that that's the way I used to be. I didn't realize that I'm such a sugar. I'm a hardcore, without question, sugar and carb addict. I mean,
too.
and sweets is, like I told you, cookies and chocolate is really my kryptonite. That's the 2 big things, cookies and chocolate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so anyway, that lasted a week because I went to Aldi and they have those chocolate bars, big ones like this.
Right.
And I was buying, I'll just buy 1. Well, then the next time I went, I bought 2. I mean, until I was eating at least 1 full of those bars, like a day for a week, John. And I was just like, this is nuts. Okay, I'm a carnivore. This is nuts. What am I doing, right? And I just cold turkey. I literally just didn't buy anymore and just kept it out of the house. And let me tell you, the cravings were there for
a while, but they do go away.
Yeah, but
give it time.
It was 3 or 4 days.
Yeah. You and I are very much alike in that respect.
Yeah.
Can you tell me how your friends and family and coworkers are now reacting to the way you're eating?
Well, okay, they think I'm crazy. I mean, they know what I'm doing, and but they still think I'm going to kill myself. And now I use the for anybody that really gives me a hard time. I use the Rick Charger Mopar. I said, listen, I've been trying really hard for 2 years now to give myself a massive heart attack, but I just keep failing. I just keep getting thinner, healthier. I mean, and I'm on no medicines anymore. I used to take a handful and I was 300 pounds. I've lost 100 pounds. So, but yeah, you're right. But I just want to keep trying to give myself a heart attack. And you know what? They just look at me like, how do you even come back from somebody saying, yeah? But the results, they see the results, particularly the people that I work with. So they just go, he's crazy. But meanwhile, all the people I work with are diabetic. They're fat. They're sick. They take medicine. One guy had a massive coronary on a cruise ship, had to be life flighted off and paddled. His heart stopped. And he was a smoker. Well, guess what? He's smoking again. After that, John, literally, and the big belly, little guy, but with the big belly, and just eats, all the pizza and cookies and everything. I mean, and smoking again. The only difference is he hides the smoking from his wife. Yeah. He smokes in the back by his car at work, and he hides it from his wife. But I mean, look, addiction is a very terrible thing. And I think sugar is as addictive, if not more, than heroin and cocaine and meth and crack.
Because it's easily accessible and it's socially acceptable and it's readily available.
Yeah. It's a very bad, it's a terrible addiction. Absolutely. And it's normalized. You can't,
that's it.
To sell somebody, oh, you're addicted to sugar.
Look at the sugar holidays. Look at Halloween and all of it.
What are you talking about? I mean, everybody has cookies and cakes at the holidays, and everyone has a milkshake. Everyone has this once in a while and this once in a while. Yeah, but are they healthy? Are they thin?
Right.
Are they on medicine?
Last question here before we go. Can you share some really important advice to somebody who's considering the carnivore diet? What would you tell them?
Well, so there's 2 ways. There's like a fork in the road how to start this, okay? But before you even decide of which of these two you're going to do, I recommend you do your research. Okay, I would go to Dr. Berry, go to Carnivore Teacher. You've got a lot of great videos. Okay, go to Old Guy Carnivore. Go to Kelly Hogan, which is My Zero Carb Life. Go to Dr. Chaffee, Anthony Chaffee, Chaffee. Dr. Philip Ovadia, a cardiovascular surgeon, if you're concerned about LDL or cholesterol, because you're going to hear that. But there's a lot of them out there. Steak and Butter Gal, Bella. There's a lot of channels out there, but do your research, okay? Dr. Ben Bickman, Bikman, incredible. He's a scientist. And once you get the comfort level, which is what happened to me, I got it pretty quickly with Dr. Berry. I recommend you start with Dr. Berry because he's just got so many videos and he's been doing it the longest, I think, with this amount of volume. Once you're comfortable, you got two ways to go. It's a fork in the road. Now, I did more of a gradual. I didn't do the cold turkey, like just full-blown carnivore. And especially if you're coming from vegetarian or vegan, I do not recommend that you go full-blown cold turkey because I think you're going to have some physical effects from oxalate dumping, problems in the bathroom with diarrhea, things like. I think it's going to be exacerbated. Keto flu, feeling like you have the flu, headaches and things, and body aches. What I did, I think I mentioned, I started with keto. Then I went ketovore a couple of weeks into it, and then I transitioned by maybe week 2 or 3. I was carnivore. But even if it's a month or two, the transition for most people, I think, particularly if you're in a very high vegetable, vegan, I really think you got to go slow, baby steps. I really do. Now if you love meat and you're okay with it and you're like, I didn't even want the vegetables. Everyone told me to eat them because I hate them, but everyone told me I had to have all this and I'm not really, don't need all the pasta and bread and then fine, go for it.
Okay, so easing that's my advice too, is to go into it slowly. Everybody's different. Everybody's a different age, different genetics, but to go at it slowly, to give your body the time to adjust, because some people are, if you remember the Carnivore Soldier, just
Larry,
jump in and do it, just let it all go and just grin and bear it, and you'll come out on the other side. And some people are wired that way and they have great success. Yeah. But a lot of people, after the 6th day, the effects are so serious. The diarrhea, the electrolyte imbalance, keto flu issues, they quit. I know so many people that say, "Oh, I tried that. I can't take it."
Yeah.
So your advice is excellent to go.
Yeah,
I agree with you, to ease into it slowly, 90 days, 60 days, gradually. I did it like you. I was keto first, then I went ketovore, and then I went carnivore, just like you. And we have a lot in common.
What happened with me is I never was a vegetable guy.
Neither was I. Yeah, it was easy for me to let that go. Not the candy, though. Not the junk.
And so when you go keto, you're already taking out the breads and the cakes and the cookies. So you're already taking that out. So what you're left with is meat and vegetables and some fruit maybe, or maybe berries or whatever, and some avocado or something like that. So the only thing I ended up kind of taking out to go carnivore is that some of the salad or those things.
It wasn't that much more to go, so it was kind of easy. That's how I felt. Where can we find you if anybody's looking for you? I know that you appear as a guest on Nia's Way, and I used to do them on Wednesday night. But do you have a channel?
Well, my channel is PapaCarnivore 15. I don't have any videos there, but curiously, I've got a bunch of subscribers that go there. I don't know and eventually maybe I will start posting videos, but with just being busy with work and stuff and life, and then I really focus on I'm in the chats on a lot of the big carnivore channels, as you know, and I appear as a guest on video with you Wednesday nights. Carnivore Teacher, please come. Nia's Way, Nia, and Kerry. I've been interviewed by Kerry Mann of Homestead How, and also by Dave Mack on his channel, which is Zero Carb Life. And then Kerry and I, we were supposed to be doing an interview on the 18th, but now it's going to be on the 25th, Saturday, January 25th. We're doing a Success in 2025 for people, you know, how to kick off the year.
Great.
And especially if you fell off during the holidays,
Okay.
how to have success on carnivore in 2025. So please watch that. That's going to be at 7:15. I'm sorry, 8:15 Eastern, 7:15 Central Time on Saturday, January 25th.
You should get the copies of these, the one you did already, the one you're going to do. Put them on your channel. Since you're starting to get subscribers, people are looking for you. They'll start seeing your content on your channel.
Yeah, I guess you're
as
right.
well. Yeah.
The other thing
great.
is I'm going to be at the Tampa meetup. There's a Tampa meetup for Dr. Kiltz. Also, I'm now a moderator on the Dr. Kiltz Live at 5 a.m. I'm a moderator. They gave me a blue wrench.
Oh, wow.
So it's me and Alia Wells. I don't know if you know Alia. So at 5 to 6 in the morning on weekdays, Monday through Friday, and I help moderate the chat.
That's great.
Yeah. So you'll see me kind of all over. And the old guy carnivore, I'm in the chat there a lot.
Fantastic. All right, Rick, sorry. Peter, you have been just a wealth of knowledge. I'm going to go through the list again. I want people to really understand how powerful the proper human diet is. Peter, PapaCarnivore, had obesity with a BMI of 40, depression, anxiety, ADHD, diabetes of over an 8.0 A1C, hypothyroidism, hypertension, which is high blood pressure, acid reflux, arthritis in your knees, lower back pain, ankle pain, indigestion, IBS, skin tags, eczema, joint clicking, brain fog, poor sleep, sleep apnea, bipolar, type 2, and bleeding gums. Can you please, when I make this video and post it, can you send me a before picture and an after picture?
Yeah.
Because
also, John, I forgot to mention,
this is amazing. People
I forgot to mention
story.
Another thing. I had terrible migraines, and I think a lot of it was just sugar. But those migraines, I would take medicine for that too.
This is all gone now.
That went away, and that also was gone in 3 weeks.
And all the medicines you took for these and all their side effects, you're almost off of all the medicine.
I'm off everything except for a levothyroxine, which is a thyroid pill, very mild for hypothyroidism.
I think before we go, or I could tell you privately, I'll tell you while we're here public. Get a bucket again and just get some empty pill bottles. I know you threw them out, and write the name, if you can remember, of all the prescriptions, and just like Carrie does, keep it as a visual effect when you go on a live and hold that. I'm telling you, it's powerful for people to see how you got off of all this medicine, how you've improved oh my gosh, this list of ailments. Thank God. Thank God that you're healthy and well. And I met you in person, so I can tell my audience how healthy you are and how I would never have known that you were that heavy guy.
I'm going to send you these. I'm going to send you 2 pictures, before pictures, John.
All right.
You're not going to believe your eyes.
I'm not joking. Yeah, I remember you showed me on your phone.
If you saw me back then and you saw me now, you wouldn't think it's the same guy.
Amazing.
Yeah.
All right, great. Thank you so much for coming on.
Okay, thanks, John.
Hang on for a second. I want to end the recording, and then we'll say goodbye.